for them. You just go. So now. All right, I'm gonna start get people in the school.
I always have like separate windows with a bunch of tabs on them. So I'm constantly.
But you don't need that for this. You can just do all your window tabs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
you just go to Google extension. Awesome. It's the best thing I've learned. I sent it to Kim because you know she
Right.
always has
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
I
she needs that.
sent it to her.
Myself.
That's big as.
Somebody named themselves tired.
I
In Zoom.
can understand that.
Welcome to our virtual folks. Give us a thumbs up. You can hear me. Pop something in the chat. Got a thumbs up. Somebody's Jocelyn. Welcome, tired.
A lot of you.
Anybody else tired?
No.
No,
Little
of
bit.
course not.
How about caffeinated?
Caffeinated, yes.
She said she talked to them yesterday and it should be all set up.
A little bit.
Good.
That's all right.
When I see that, it's kind of a big sponsor. That's what it's like a tree there since it's not.
It was like this family species connection. Which, so it was like. Catching up on our. Yeah, it was nuts.
Hey guys, we do have a handout, so I'll just come around and give you that before we get started.
Thank you.
You like handouts, especially pretty colored ones.
You don't necessarily need to use it if you don't want. It's not gonna be shared or turned in or anything like that. It's simply just to guide your thinking today and make any notes that may be helpful for you.
Colorful. It's so pretty.
Thank you.
Can I ask a favor? Can you make the bit.ly address a little bit larger?
Devin, I don't know if we can do that on the Nearpod.
Oh, it's Nearpod, never
Yeah.
mind.
We're
Okay,
also gonna get you on a Nearpod, so you'll have.
okay.
Yep.
I'll just stick it for a second. Yeah, so the bit.ly will just go to our Google Slides that we have been uploaded to Nearpod. So
Yeah.
Instead of doing groups this year. So many kids do.
I mean, I do.
Mhm.
The Zoom is audio and everything ready to go.
Yeah, audio's good. So we are ready when you are.
I want to.
Don't, please don't.
Oh, I move around way too much. They'll be great on Zoom. Ready?
You're at 8:30. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on a Tuesday morning. It is the most dreaded of all times to present, so we really appreciate you being here early on the very last day. We are just as tired as I'm sure all of you are, but we are very grateful that you're here, and we're going to give you our all for the next however long this takes. We may not go the full hour, and if we don't, we'll let you get out to the candied bacon before everybody else does. My name is Clay Todd. I work with Albemarle County Schools. This is Devin Stevens. We'll introduce ourselves a little more formally, but before that, Devin's going to walk you through. We've got just a little bit of interactivity today using our Nearpod. So if you want to, Devin, go ahead and walk them through what they need to do to get on if you're not familiar with the service.
Sure, raise your hand if you've ever used Nearpod before.
Ever or never?
Ever, like
Okay.
before? Yeah, sorry, the mask. You have ever used it before? Awesome. Then you know that you can either use your phone with the app or your computer. And then the code to join our Nearpod today so that we can interact together as a group is in the top left-hand corner, P683F. If you go to on your computer, it looks like the website snapshot on the right side of the screen. You just type in that code. Or if you have the app, you can type it in on your phone. And as you guys join, we see how many are joining us. Yes, we have 6 so far. So we'll give you guys a few more seconds to get that all set up.
Nearpod's self-paced too, correct?
That is correct. So my school in Albemarle County, I'm at a middle school and an elementary school. And my elementary school used it a lot last year, just the free version of it. But we bought the full license this year as a school. So even though we're not virtual anymore, we still use it as an interactive tool in class in person.
Very useful for keeping kids focused while you're giving direct instruction, but also really great tool for allowing them to move at their own pace if you wish to use that. Okay, we've got about everybody on. Okay. So,
We just wanted to make sure that everybody was in and able to use Nearpod. So we just have a quick question, like a little icebreaker. And so I have your names hidden, but I would love to share the results. And this is how we're going to use the poll activity today and the collaboration board, kind of like Padlet, where you can throw ideas up on the board. So for about 30 seconds, when I click start activity on your screen, you'll be able to pick, if you have a choice, let's say a 2-week vacation, would you rather go to the mountains or the ocean?
Loaded.
I guess we're all tired of Roanoke. I'm a mountains person, so I guess I'll be going on
We live
vacation
in
by
the-
myself.
You live in the mountains.
I do live in the mountains. I'm still a mountains person. I love the ocean. All right, so this is Nearpod, just a little taste. If at any point you get kicked out and can't get back in, the code will stay on the top left corner, so you can hop right back in there. We have not uploaded our slides yet to the schedule, but we will make sure that we do that at the end of the day today if you want to take them with you. All right.
So I just shared the majority said the ocean, so I'm with that side. Sorry, Clay. The ocean it is. So we thought we'd just let you know what we look like without our mask. And I'm Devin, and that's Clay. And our Twitter handles, if you would like to reach out to us as well.
I'm not particularly active on Twitter, so you can certainly find me there. You may not find me saying a whole lot. It's just never been my strength. Devin serves as an LTI, which is our acronym in Albemarle County, same thing as ITRT, technology coach. We all seem to have different names for that now. I serve as of yesterday in a new position as manager for digital equity in our division. And we'll be doing some overseeing of our team, but particularly my role is focused on any technology initiatives that we have, making sure that they are implemented in an equitable way for all of our students, not just some of our students. So that can be anything from technology that's actually pushed out, hardware, software, but also curriculum. Also making sure that any training that teachers get, that we're trying to ensure some equity of experience for all of our kids. So that's why I'm here today. We're going to talk with you a little bit about digital citizenship and what we are currently doing to make sure that that curriculum is implemented with fidelity in our district. Right. So today this will be our agenda. We're gonna sort of chronologically share with you our journey of digital citizenship. It is not over, it will never be over. We still have a lot of growing to do ourselves, but we have made a lot of progress over the past few years, as far as really starting almost from the ground up, almost no digital citizenship instruction, to now getting to a place where we're seeing it implemented a lot more heavily across all of our schools, with a certain degree of fidelity. So we'll start with where we started. We'll talk about our process over the past really 4 years. We will share some successes and challenges that we had, and we will then kind of talk about where we're headed next. Our hope today is that you can just take something from this. Everything that we say is not foolproof, but might provide at least a little bit of a roadmap for you and your division if you are finding that you're struggling with implementing digital citizenship skills with your kids. So we're going to break things down today. When we sat down at the start of our process, we saw digital citizenship as something that cannot just exist with the child. I recently heard digital citizenship described as the old digital citizenship and the new digital citizenship. And the way that was put to me was that old digital citizenship is reactive. We have a misuse case with the device, or you all probably heard about the TikTok bathroom issue at all the middle schools this past year. And how are we reacting to those issues? Old digital citizenship tends to be very discipline oriented. It tends to really focus on why technology is bad and how you have to be so careful with it. We really wanted to move to what was described, and forgive me, I do not actually remember who framed it for me this way. I would totally use good digital citizenship skills and give them credit, but I think I was at a conference and it was, if Devin might remember, were you there?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so new digital citizenship is proactive. It is about giving kids skills. It is about helping them develop healthy habits. It is about trying to mitigate things before they even happen, not from a discipline standpoint, but from the standpoint of what skills do our kids have with tech to help them make better decisions and choices. So that's what we really wanted to focus on. And when we're going to focus on a much more holistic view of digital citizenship, we realized we really needed to engage all of our stakeholders, not just our students. Of course, students being our primary, we're calling them partnership groups, but also our families. How are we engaging with our families and giving them resources? How are we working with our teachers so that our teachers understand what we really mean when we say digital citizenship? Is it just, it is not good for a teacher to simply just sit with a kid and say, don't turn your laptop on, or why'd you close that tab? That's purely reactive, and it doesn't show that a teacher necessarily has competency with these skills that we are hoping that our kids will learn. So what sort of training are we putting in place? And then at the school and division level, what are we doing to ensure that equity and fidelity of curriculum is happening everywhere, not just in isolated classrooms? So we'll kind of look at everything today through the frame of these 4 core. So where we started, let's frame up our conversation a little bit here. And we're going to start in 2017, 2018. This was kind of the baseline. Devin and I started in Albemarle County at the same time. We came in 2018. So the year before we come in, this is kind of the state of our division. So all of our students are 1-to-1 already. All of them, except for K through 2, who are actually now 1-to-1. All that we had in place was an acceptable use policy. Your division probably has one too, whether you're familiar with it or not. If you're not, it's probably a good idea to head into your school board documents, take a look, see, do you have an acceptable use policy and what is in it? What comprises it? Ours was very don't oriented. Students will not use their technology to make money. Students will not use their technology to do anything other than schoolwork. Very do not oriented policy. All that was being done was lessons were being taught that explained this policy specifically. Imagine yourself, you are a 3rd grader and someone is talking to you about the acceptable use policy. Not exciting stuff for a 3rd grader to sit and listen to, not exciting for an adult to sit and listen through. And that's really all we had as far as curriculum went for the most part. That lesson also comprised some hardware care. In the middle school level, we had what's called a digital passport. This was something that could be done asynchronously. So a lot of teachers were not engaging with it. This was a lesson that when the student received their laptop, they just had to click through it. Really nothing to actually track that they learned anything. It was very much, okay, we can say we check the box that we put something in front of them. So you can imagine, as far as our students go, we have misuse everywhere. We have all sorts of skills that are just not being demonstrated in all of our different domains that we will look through in just a second. Devin, do you want to take the next one and talk about it?
Sure. So starting back in like 2017, 2018, as far as families go, the only thing that when we came was maybe PTO nights where digital citizenship questions came up. But as we started to go through our journey that year, we started to add the idea of adding some sort of family night and working with our administrators about that, kind of thinking that through, how can we get those families engaged? If you went to our website all the way back then, it was outdated, I'll admit it. When we both applied to Albemarle, I think we had that idea of like, oh, okay. And so since then, our website's been updated, and as they have used a new platform, they've added a lot of resources for our families to just grab and go, including Spanish resources, which we had none back in 17, 18. English only, if it was even there.
We had no PD for teachers around digital citizenship at all. The teachers that we found actually knew anything about it were the ones that were self-motivated enough to care about it. And a lot of those people were on our team, or LTIs. So it wasn't uncommon for an LTI position opens up, and now a teacher who's passionate about digital citizenship is actually moving out of the school. Yes, they have the capacity now as a technology coach to spread some of that wealth, but we all know, those of you that are technology coaches, it's sometimes difficult to get in front of students. So what we were really seeing was that that champion teacher would move out of a building and suddenly there's actually less digital citizenship instruction happening. There was no consistent training around any sort of curriculum for teachers when we started. And as I mentioned before, just this prevalence of this sort of reactive mindset when it comes to technology use and seeing misuse, really being our teacher baseline there. grab it.
Yeah, and I think there's like two ways to look at this as we go forward, and that's a school-based plan and a district-wide plan. And ours is district-wide. Our plan, our goal, our vision has been a district-wide initiative, but it can also just be school-based. So if you drill down to it, that year, there was no like push from the top. There was no like any leader, whether it was student learning department or even they call it our cabinet, you know, there's like leaders at the very top. There was no like push to get this going. And then you drill it down to the principals. Are the principals motivated to get it in their school? And we just really wasn't seeing that across the board. There might be one principal that it was their, you know, idea to get it going. But if you look at the whole district, there really wasn't any push coming from any leader, from principal all the way to the top.
I will say it was a very common experience though, that first year as an LTI, to have a principal reach out and say, hey, we've had this issue come up. Can you talk to the kid?
Yeah.
All the time.
We were
Still happens, but
we were the go-to person to have that talk.
we as a team really started asking ourselves, we're seeing this happen so much. There's got to be a better way than just responding. So this is kind of where it all started was how do we fix this issue of how we're reacting to this problem?
And I think this last bullet is pretty important, and I totally forgot about it until we started doing this, because I don't know about you guys, but I'll be totally blunt. I have blacked out the entire last year, like mentally, just to keep going. So when Clay and I when you say 2018, it feels like a decade ago now, a little bit, and I completely forgot really everything that we had done. So we even forgot that we were not a committee originally. We right now have a committee of, I think, 6 LTIs, and like we're pushing this. Like it is our banner that we, you know, go through. But when we started, we weren't even a committee. It was just a group of LTIs that said, let's do a project. Let's just kind of think this through. And from that project, and Albemarle, so I'm from Danville and Martinsville, the southern part of the state, and I moved to Albemarle in 2017. And I had to learn a lot of acronyms and a lot of speak just to them. And so the term project means you really don't have a lot of power, okay, just honestly. It was like, okay, you guys are passionate about that. You guys go over into this little room and you work together. So when they agreed to move us up to this like committee status, it felt like a great progress already, just to be recognized.
So we're gonna do another quick poll. That's where we were. I expect that a lot of us might feel similarly about your division currently, or maybe not too long ago. So where is your school division now in the process of implementing a digital citizenship curriculum? Full implementation, maybe you're at the start of your implementation, or maybe you haven't even started yet.
Maybe we're gonna look at it as like a division wide. Where would your division, or if you are from a private school, that's okay too. Like,
So most of us are at the start, which is a good place to be. It's a very exciting place to be. Started. Okay. We got 3.6%. That's probably maybe 1 or 2 people that would consider themselves a full implementation. And I actually don't think we consider ourselves a full implementation. I think we're extremely close. But we will definitely, hopefully today you can take some strategies away, those of you that answered A or B, to get yourselves there.
I told Clay if we were going to do this, that I had to, I wanted to be honest and to say that we have learned a lot along the way, but we also, starting this process, reached out to other school districts. I just Googled who has been certified by Common Sense Media as a district. Didn't find any districts in Virginia. So I reached out to a school in Georgia, a district in Georgia, Baltimore County, the whole district is certified. So we reached out as well to try to get tips, hints, how to get started. And we've had challenges and we're working through those. And like Clay said, I don't think we'll ever be done. They do rotate us in and out of that committee. So I'm actually not on the committee this school year. But my teammates have stepped in and are doing a great job. So it is fluid. It is still work in progress. We just wanted to share some of the experiences we've had so far.
Okay, so we'll talk through our process from each of our groups. Our ultimate goal was to create a common digital citizenship experience in all grades as an embedded part of the school culture found in the classroom, school, community. That word embedded is so important and was very important to us. I encourage, if you're at the start of your process, thinking about that word for yourself. What we mean by that is that digital citizenship instruction is not a one and done thing. It continually happens. It is a part of, you might have discrete lessons, but it's also happening as a part of your content delivery. If you're a media center specialist, you're probably like, I already know this, because I'm constantly getting my kids to cite their work and that sort of thing. But thinking through that word embedded, I think, is a very important piece of this, because we want our students to connect those digital citizenship skills with their life. Then we need to be connecting it with what they're doing.
And I would say that right now, a lot of the lessons are heavily delivered by my team, like myself and the ones that are assigned to the schools. Like I have a schedule, I go in and I deliver these lessons myself. I might co-teach. Some of my teachers I just support, but honestly, I give majority of the lessons. So my goal would be able to see myself step back and my teachers embedding that in their everyday curriculum.
So quickly reflecting on where you are, if you were just to draft a very brief goal statement for yourself, for your own division, or if you're a teacher in your classroom or your school, what would that look like? And they will appear up here, so don't share anything.
And if you like what somebody else said, you can heart it. You
Yes.
like it.
Republic Constance Media, good question. We're going to talk about that process in detail. Tested in digital citizenship is I am. Yes. Start teaching lessons more consistently. Having teachers love it. Okay, so it sounds like, I realize some of these are probably virtual, but expand initiative to the rest of the county. It sounds like we've got a digital citizenship champion in the room.
Yes.
Right.
Just a quick flag. The sheet I gave you, the handout, kind of starts here. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes at conferences, I try to bookmark their bit.lys and all of that, but I still forget things. So I created a handout to go along with us. So if you notice at the very top of that handout, it's talking about your goal. So you can write down ideas. And so when you get back home later, when you can decompress and look back at it, it can help you get started. That was my main goal, is like pulling this out of your bag when you get home and you're ready for your next step. So kind of like just like a little planning note sheet. And so the first question on your handout is about the goals. So maybe somebody mentioned something up here that triggered a thought for you, and you can write it down on the sheet, even after the Nearpod is gone.
Gonna move on. So our process, we're gonna take you year by year by partnership group. So our goals for our students was to move from an old to a new digital citizenship model. It was also to select a well-developed curriculum, whether that was something that we created or whether it was something that we found We ended up with a combination of both for a little while before ultimately moving to a curriculum that we'll show you in just a moment. So in 2018, 2019, we formed our committee that we mentioned. The very first thing that we did is we sat down and we said, what are the sort of core areas of digital citizenship that we feel are important, that students know and understand, and that are consistently talked about from year to year to year to year. So we identified, I believe it was 8 domains, and those included various titles such as healthy habits, screen time, help me out, Devin, cyberbullying.
Digital footprint, netiquette, and to be honest, in 1819, with this committee fully formed and ready to just go at it, we saw the internet also, which is Google's free curriculum. And it also has a gamified part where you can play levels and the kids can use that. And we actually went really heavy at first with the internet awesome. And it's great, but it felt like our district needed just something else. Like it wasn't quite covering everything we needed. And that's when we came across Common Sense Media. And it was there for a while in the spring where we were actually trying to write lessons by combining both. And we just got really bogged down with that, with everything else, trying to write a new curriculum with these two. When we said, you know what, it just feels really good with Common Sense Media. But every district in school is different. So, but those are the two that we tried out first. And then we eventually just went full Common Sense Media only.
We do have our, as part to enhance our acceptable use policy, we do have a lesson that we drafted for our students around just taking care of their computers, especially for our younger kids. So that was not included as part of the Internet Awesome or Common Sense Media's curriculum. So those lessons were drafted by us. So the whole point here, though, is a good place to start is to identify those domains of digital citizenship. And then as you draft your curriculum, what are those competencies at each grade level that you want to see happen? So we quite literally just had a huge whiteboard up. And we made a big chart of all of our domains across the top, our grade levels along the side, and went in and made sure that we had lessons to plug in at each of those intersecting points so that there was this curriculum that scaffolded its way up. I highly encourage you to think through that same process. And these are, again, these two curriculums are really, really great. And if you feel mixing and matching is the move for you, you might find something else out there, but definitely check them both out. In 2019, 2020, we started our implementation. That really looked, again, we were working in a system where there was not a lot of necessarily administrative buy-in. So we really did is we went after those sort of core teachers that really, really loved and felt passionate about this topic and brought that curriculum to them. We also just utilized our tech coaches, pushing into classrooms. Oh, hey, I heard you had an issue with a kid popping keys off their keyboard. What if I came in and taught a lesson on taking care of their computers? Oh, I heard that, so-and-so has been chatting back and forth on Google. We're actually still playing a little bit into that reactive piece, but that's what a lot of teachers needed. They needed someone to come in and help give those kids the skills, and then you've got your foot in the door. That's when you've got lessons prepared and teachers see, oh, wow, you really know what you're talking about. This has helped my class for my students to manage themselves a little bit more. Please come back in. Let's do another one on cyberbullying next week or whatever. We also tend to work with our guidance counselors a little bit around things like digital drama, cyberbullying. And I know at the schools that I were at, the counselors actually have taught probably about half the lessons has been delivered by the counselors as opposed to the teacher. And then of course, engage your media center specialists. So those are really kind of the groups that we went after were our counselors, our teachers, our media center specialists, and sort of those champion groups just to get our foot in the door and get this curriculum tested a little bit. We're not implementing fully with every classroom yet. But we're trying to identify those stories where this curriculum has shown success. The places where it doesn't succeed, Devin mentioned, we started with Be Internet Awesome. We actually just moved exclusively to Common Sense Media because we found that for our schools, that was more successful. And then we, at this point is when we kind of move to building it into more of a district plan or a school plans.
I would like to know that you wanna, if you're excited and you're ready to go, you think about like K-12, like even pre-K, if you guys have that in your school, like K-12, let's go. And we immediately realized that let's take it a little bit at a time. So notice that the first couple of years was just 3-8. We just drilled it down. High school is a totally different beast, right? K2, at this time, we were just starting to get like iPads in the room, but it was not one-to-one. So we're like, let's just look at 3-8 and see what we can really make a change there. And if you notice, we then went to K2. By COVID, we had one-to-one iPads. So K2, full on implementation. And then we're honestly still working on 9-12. And we'll share some of the things that have been working, but we're really trying to figure out what exactly will work in all of our high schools.
One thing I'd like to point out is by the time we get to this year, it says implementation of curriculum based on admin opt-in. We are seeing a lot more admin opt-in now than we did previously. And a big part of that is our common sense certification, which we'll hit in a second. But that's become a really sort of key thing that, oh, that school got that, we want that. So that admin opt-in, while we're still very much in the stage where we're not division-wide with our curriculum implementation, we have seen a massive upswing in engagement with the curriculum because of that certification process that I'll mention in a second. Devin, we have a slide on the badging initiative, correct?
Yes, which I,
Here's the domains before I talk about badging that we have now honed in on. And when I say honed in, if you're familiar with Common Sense Media, you're gonna be like, this is just their domains. Yes, we ultimately decided, we had 8 domains at first, we have now narrowed down to 6. And we select all our curriculum and lessons from these categories on Common Sense Media's website. You are not on Common Sense Media's website. I highly recommend you go and you get an account. You will find way more than just curriculum there. You'll find, if you're a parent, there are movie reviews and book reviews. If you have, they do a lot of research and advocacy around media literacy, and which is, as we all know, is a big issue right now around all of these categories. So you just infinite amounts of resources, parent handouts, all sorts of things. Check out Common Sense Media. You do have to sign up for an account, but it's totally free and they don't spam.
And they do provide resources for family nights, like slides already created, so you can just like take it and deliver. I would add that we do have one additional one, that hardware care initial lesson that we give at the start of the year, like Clay mentioned. We did create that lesson. So it's kind of like +1, that hardware care at the beginning. But what I think the part that we love so much about Common Sense Media is that it is scaffolded so easily. Because if it is going to be implemented in every single grade, and every kid is going to get the same experience, you don't want repeats. You don't want the kid just to get the same lesson year after year. You want them to dive deeper as they get older. And Common Sense Media did a great way of mapping it out and scaffolding it. So the lessons are age appropriate. And then as you get into middle school, it really dives into that social media and that aspect of your self-identity online that a lot of kids start to experience at that age. And then high school, really getting them ready for the adult world and really what their footprint looks like. And so those domains are available in every single grade, and they just scaffold and build on each other. So it was just like, ta-da, like, here you go. It's like a really, really good curriculum package.
And Common Sense Media's curriculum is great also in that they allow you to tweak lessons. There's no copyright issues as long as everything is attributed to them. You are welcome to adjust those lessons without, I know we do that all the time, but it feels like when we're doing that with the digital citizenship lesson, it's important to make sure that we're actually can and are allowed to do that based on copyright. So they do give that license.
I would say like, because you were like, I need to be certified. So if I'm like, edit your lesson, will I still get my certification? And they're like, yes, it's okay. And the other thing I wanted to add real quick is Common Sense Media really is about that proactive approach. And so their data even talks about getting away from screen time and amount of hours, right? So like pediatricians say, so much screen time for age 2, so much screen time for age 3. And Common Sense Media says our research is starting to show that every person is different. So one child might be able to have a screen time of 30 minutes and then need a break mentally and physically. But another child might be able to play 2 hours of a video game and not need a break. They're okay mentally and physically. So it's about checking in, pausing. This is in every lesson we have. Pause and think. So starting at kindergarten, we're teaching the kids just to pause and think. Pause in and check yourself in media balance. Do you feel mentally and physically okay, or do you need a break? Pause and think before you click on that website. Even the older kids, pause and think before you post that comment. And the Common Sense Media said things are going to happen. Like the old mentality is trying to keep them from ever having that bad experience. It's going to happen. It is. So why not give them the skill to either navigate it, or afterward, Jake, because they don't have that frontal lobe ability to process, then say, oh, what can I take from this experience with things I've already learned so it doesn't happen again? So it's just, I really just value how they approach it all together. But this slide, when you go to our bit.ly, has the link to Common Sense Media as part of the image. And this is just straight from them, just to let you know what's embedded in general. So it does have Spanish. So the exact same lesson, all the handouts, all the videos, you can get it in English and Spanish. And I love the videos. They're so age appropriate, even in high school. It's just kids coming to talk about their experiences and give that, real life flow. And then in kindergarten, they have these little cartoon characters that sing and dance. And it's just, the videos are great as well. And you can use those even without the lesson.
Lest you think we do not work for Common Sense Media. We just really love them that much. They're just that good.
I was like, Clay, should we email them and let them know that?
So we also aligned, we had at the same time, we mentioned the Digital Citizenship Committee originally started as a project team. We had another project team going around badging for digital competencies. So some of us served on both of those teams. So we decided this would be a great alignment to bring those teams together. This has fallen off, but that's primarily just because we were in virtual learning. So we weren't giving kids physical badges anymore. Wasn't safe to do so, and nor were we really seeing them in person. But we did find that the way this worked was every time a lesson was completed in one of those domains, the students received a badge that they got to put, just a sticker that they got to put on the back of their computer. Whether or not your IT department will allow that, we are fortunate to work in a division where we can cover it up with whatever want. But kids, oh my gosh, we get so excited over this. So just to generate some interest from the student perspective, and this was just for elementary, obviously. Although we did, actually that's not true. We did have digital versions of the badges within our LMS Schoology for our middle school students. Yeah, anything you want to say about badges?
Yeah, so I was on this project as well, and I get super excited. So the picture you actually see of the computer was taken last week. I had some folders from pre-COVID just sitting in my office, and my teachers came to me and said, do you have any more of those badges? I was like, yes, I do. Thank you for seeking me out, because like Clay said, as a division, we just haven't gotten back on that train yet, right? Post-COVID. And I've already knocked out lessons already in his class, so the kids could go ahead and get 3 of the badges last week. And there are even for hardware care, so that's the lesson that we created. And then I wanted to also fill up the virtual world builder. So we have a Minecraft license in Albemarle. K-12 students have Minecraft. And if you also have experience with that or any kind of like online gaming, is digital citizenship all over the place, all day, every day. So the badge that you see there that says virtual world builder, right, copyright issue, so that's what we named it. But if my students in my school were showing great digital citizenship in Minecraft, they earned that badge as well. Because it's not just, here's the lesson, here's your sticker, we're done. And this was also a pilot, by the way. So there's only, I think there was 3 schools at elementary that was doing the badging. Mine was one. And so I required them to complete, for example, media balance. They did a journal and they reported over the weekend their screen time. And then I would come back and talk to them about their journal. And then through that talking and through that thinking, then they would earn the badge. So it was about actually doing something as well. Like you get the badge from reflecting and working through on what you have learned. And one of my 3rd grade classes designed that badge. And Clay, he's very humble, but he's like our design expert. So all the stickers were designed by him. And he's just really, really awesome. And he could really make anything that we wanted.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Do you print your sticker or do you? send
We
them
do,
out
we just
somewhere?
we just get the Avery labels
Okay.
and we just run them through the color printer and it works great. We did, initially, we got them printed through a local printer and then we were like, why are we doing it? Like, this is so much more expensive.
It was just better to print your own. That's what I wanted to know.
Yep, it
Yes.
works, they work great.
Yeah, even months of wear and tear. Some of my teachers did just use clear tape. If some of the kids, some are
Yeah, I
got
don't remember.
roughed up more than others, but
If you're interested in, doing physical badges or stickers, I'm trying to remember the paper type. There's it. Do your research on the paper type because they will fall off the computer if it's not the right piece. Okay. Quite a bit to cover. Whoops,
okay.
too fast. So we've talked about students a little bit. We'll talk about where the kind of things stand now momentarily, but let's talk about families. At the beginning of this process, we had no family engagement outside of, again, those champions, potentially sort of holding a night at school. So you guys might be familiar with family tech nights. You may or may not do them in your building. That happened occasionally. It was very sporadic. I would say maybe 20% of our schools held them at that point. So we said, how can we as a team offload some of that family engagement from the responsibility of the school onto us? So that we, again, have fidelity of resources for our families. So our first year, we decided what would be really useful is to have a guide for families around digital citizenship, also just around technology in our division. This is a publication that we have since put out. We have a copy or 2 here. We can pass it around if you'd like to see it. Unfortunately, I scoured our offices. I could only find one because they're just all out in the schools. But this guide we developed over the first year in partnership with the Department of Technology. So when you look through it, you'll notice there's some stuff in there about like what gets onto my child's computer, what happens if my child's computer breaks, that kind of thing. But the latter half of the guide is all digital citizenship resources for families based around our domains. You actually even see the badge in the top corner. And these went home to every family, depending on how the school wanted to hand them out. There's also a digital version that can be accessed when you, if you have the slides open. The next slide, I think, will link you to that. If you look at it, know that this is old. We've just done our second revision content-wise, and I'm just in the process of like physically updating it and giving it kind of a facelift. So there are some links and some things in here that digital citizenship changes. Because our world changes and technology changes and how we interact with it. So there's just some things that need to be updated. But what this has been a huge win for us. this guide in that it has, first off, we know that there's something in every home that a parent can go to if they have an issue. There are also conversation starters to have at the dinner table.
Is it called the Family Field Guide?
Yes, we call it our family field. That's our colloquial term
Just
for it.
Googling it.
Yeah, if you look up Albemarle County Family Field Guide, you'll probably find it. It's been a huge win also in that when we do have issues at school, a principal has a document to give a family and say, hey, if you're struggling with these issues at home, here are some strategies, here are some ways to frame up that question for you. We also got it trained, I think we got 2 going around, one's in Spanish and one's in English. We got it we worked with our ESOL offices to get it translated into Spanish for our Spanish speaking families. One of my future goals is to get this translated into even more languages. Of course, and then our virtual version, instead of it just being a PDF, we're hoping to make it actually sort of a more like Adobe Spark kind of website that can be translated based on just the translation algorithms that have really improved in the past few years. We also, in addition to the field guide, we now host family nights that are division-wide, and we live stream these. So typically a process for us, but we actually just did one a couple weeks ago. We will solicit feedback from families through a survey, through a blast that goes out through our electronic notification system. What do you want to hear about? What questions do you have around a certain area? That can be anything from cybersecurity to screen time. And we, in the past, our model that seems to be working really well for us is we do a panel of people, and that can vary on who that is, just depending on the topic. Librarians have served on it, principals have served on it. We've had people from outside of our division serve on it, like people in the industry, tech industry. And they come in and we take those questions that we've gotten from our survey and we put them in front of the experts and we just have them talk. And families can tune in to that live stream. And then there's a Q&A sort of running in the background. We've done this, we're at about 2 per year, but we are hoping to continue to scale that up to more and more. And we're seeing that engagement rise around families in our division.
Okay, we're starting to partner with Common Sense Media with this as well.
Yes, we are.
A little bit with those live streams.
You do have, whether you know it or not, you have a Common Sense representative for your region. So you can always reach out to them and they have always been willing to come in and serve on those panels with us, which has been really great because they know more than we do. So that's that family field guide. That link is there if you have the slideshow open. So as far as our teachers go, Devin, I know we're getting close on time here. So make
Yeah,
sure
we can definitely speed up. I think the main thing that we have here is how do we get the curriculum to the teacher? Right, so we have the curriculum and we have our target of the students, but how do the teachers get to it easily? They don't want to go to Common Sense Media every time and try to find the lesson that they need. So we tried some platforms. We originally used Google Classroom and we divided our classrooms by grades. And then we gave the code to all 3rd grade teachers. Join this Google Classroom, everything's ready for you there. Then COVID hit and we went district-wide K-5 to Seesaw as kind of like our platform. And so we transitioned very quickly that year to put all of our lessons in Seesaw. So they could go to the library, any of our teachers, and get the lessons that they needed in Seesaw. They could do it synchronously or asynchronously. And we added audio to all of those lessons. So if the student was clicking through by themselves, so that they could still hear a voice and hear some interaction. And then I think just speaking ahead a little bit, the challenge this year is us having just a second to think, how do we get this back to in-person? They're on Seesaw, which is great, but the teachers are in person now and they might not want to use Seesaw anymore. Actually, you say seesaw and a lot of them are like, dude, bad word. So how do we get them back to us, back to this curriculum? And it's not all just on seesaw. So we're thinking through that for this year now that we're back in person. That is a challenge that we're working on.
We also do, a lot of our LTIs, our tech coaches will give faculty PD. In just a moment, next slide, we're going to talk about Common Sense Media's certification process, and that is required as part of that process, which allows us to sell it to admin. If you let me come in and give an hour-long PD around digital citizenship and the curriculum that teachers can teach, you get this certification, which is usually a huge win for us, for admin, everybody. So there is PD that's occurring in the schools. And then of course we have, division-wide PD days. And we make sure there's always an elective option there for digital citizenship learning for our teachers.
And I would just like to add, sometimes that we're focusing a little bit on elementary, but our middle schools use Schoology, and they present these lessons with the students during advisory period. And that's kind of how they get their time in, is during advisory and using Schoology.
Did you consider looking at like which ones matched which types of people? Like this type would go good for CRTs and this type would go good for classroom teachers and this type would go good for school counselors, so that they were all getting hit but by different people, so it wasn't all one group's responsibility?
Yes, and that's going to be our approach for high school.
Okay.
And we had a high school group that some of our high schools got certified last year with Common Sense, and that was their approach. Kind of like making it content specific.
Yeah.
So they could kind of like get it in. And then also our freshmen have freshman seminars. So that was another way to get it out to the freshmen. And so yes, that's definitely. And then I think now that I have some days at my middle school and some days at elementary, my middle school is it's just a secondary. I also used to be a high school teacher, so I admit we're just cut from a different cloth, and I still am. And so my elementary teachers are a little bit more gung ho and just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Tell me more. And my secondary is like, the bell's about to ring. I gotta go. Like I got things to do. So advisory was just that easy in, but I would love to see next year and in the future us really getting into that content specific embedded. Yes, that'd be great.
So as far as schools and leaders, the biggest point on this slide for you, obviously I'm not reading everything off of here, so if you want to go back and see more of the details of the timeline, is Common Sense certification. So again, I do not work for Common Sense Media, even if I sound like I do. Common Sense offers a certification pathway for educators, for schools, and for districts. Different requirements and roadmaps for each of those. But what we honed in on was doing this for schools. What this means is you have to follow a certain pathway, and at the end of the year, you submit for certification. And if you get it, you get a little press package. It's you can put things out in the news if you want, that your school has earned this. So it's a show of good faith to families and parents that we're working on these issues in school proactively. Who doesn't love certification? So the requirements to get certified are threefold. One is there has to be family engagement. Common Sense has allowed us to use our district family nights to count for a school. So that's been a great strategy because it no longer is put on a teacher in that building or an individual in that building to have to put something like that together. As long as the school is advertising that event, then it can count as that requirement, that there's family engagement. There has to be PD for faculty. So again, I mentioned before, that certification can be a big win with admin to get yourself in front of your teachers to actually talk about digital citizenship. And then the third and the most important piece is curriculum. To get certified, you have to teach either, what is it, Devin? It's 3 lessons at 3 grade levels or 6 lessons at 2 grade levels. That's very attainable, by the way. You do not have to teach a certain number of lessons to every kid. It's just that you have to reach a certain amount of kids with a certain degree of authenticity and depth. If you can meet those requirements, it's simply an application at the end of the year. Anyone who's sort of been in charge of the project, so for us, it's our tech coaches, submit that application and you hear back from Common Sense. Within our first year of doing this, we had over 60% of our schools certified. Just through this process.
I would add that if PD, let's say there isn't time for you to have face-to-face PD with your faculty, Common Sense Media will allow you to use their webinars to count towards PD, so they could do it asynchronously on their own time. And Common Sense will count that as well. So even if you can't get face-to-face time, there's that option. And I would say that when I filled out the application for my school, I recorded everything, like making sure I kept track of everything. But they don't ask for detailed notes. So if that's kind of a concern, just know that it is kind of like a best faith effort. They just say, have you done this? Yes or no. Tell us a little bit about your experience. How can you say that you've done this? And so their application is not intense at all. Kind of looks like a Google form. And you just scroll through, just kind of like checking things off, giving 250 words or less about your experience. And then the carrot for admin sometimes is you get a banner, hey, you get that news press release, and that kind of like is good. I've seen that as kind of a motivation to get my admin on board.
Yep. Our goal this year, it has actually been written. We had such success with this. Our division redid their strategic plan. We revisit that every few years. It is now in our strategic plan that we become a Common Sense certified district. That for me is the marker that we have done our job, that it is now seen as valuable by our cabinet leaders in drafting that plan, that digital citizenship is a part of what's happening in our school buildings in that proactive way. To get district certified, you have to hit 75%. We are very excited because we know we can do this. We know we're so close. We just need a couple more schools and we're there. So this is a great, for us was 4 years ago, if you had asked us that we would become a Common Sense Media certified district, ensuring that digital citizenship instruction is happening consistently in most of our buildings, we would have thought no way, but here we are. And it's just so exciting for us.
If you are interested in the certification process, like Lisa said, there's 3 levels. And then there's actually a roadmap that Common Sense just updated. The newest version is very user-friendly. And just to FYI, when you start the path to certification for your school, the first thing that they advise is to create a digital citizenship committee in the school. This could include you, a teacher. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 people. It could just be a couple people in the school that say, I'm taking this on to support. And then for our Albemarle, the committee added in red some dates just to kind of help guide it. So we would say like by August 2021, we have at the end of August, we identified the people on the committee. And then as you scroll down, you can add some other times to kind of give you stepping stones and to help be held accountable. Yes. So these are our successes and challenges. We've already talked a lot about them and kind of just summed them up here. So we're still working on buy-in. Not all of our schools are certified. Not all of our, even in certified schools, we don't see these lessons getting delivered necessarily with fidelity, classroom to classroom in just one hallway. So our goal is to have that experience. And we're still working on getting every classroom experiencing the same as the other. Just like everybody else, virtual learning through a curveball. So we're kind of like trying to see how we approach it now that we're back in person. We capitalized all because again, our goal, our vision at the beginning was to make sure all students are getting it and not just this group here or this group here. So just one last really quick share out. If you want to share some possible challenges that might be in your mind thinking this through, you can share them out.
And if you'd like, we can stick around and help you possibly think through some of these if you would like. I think this is, unless there are any questions for the group, this is probably a good place to wrap, I would say.
And the bit.ly will take you to our Google Slides. And so I think at the very end, it was just about where we're headed. And we kind of already talked to that a little bit too, about making sure if we're starting to see more fidelity and then working on our high schools.
So Ashley from Online asked, I was wondering how you were going to work on getting teachers to implement the digital citizenship lessons with fidelity. Those lessons, but some see it as just a checkbox.
So that's where we still have teachers that are, there's no question that there are some people that just don't get it yet. My answer,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, my answer to that is that it just takes time and you just have to chip away at it. That for somebody to buy into something and to care about it, they have to see the value in it. And for some, that value is right in front of their face because they see misuse issues or tech addiction issues. But for some, they have to see the change happen first before they're going to buy it.
They also have to
So-
see that it's not going anywhere and that it's gonna exist
too.
year
Yes.
after year.
Yep.
Like,
That's what I was going to add, because I tend to be blunt. You have to have some teeth in the bite. Okay, so when we started, we had no leadership on it. And it was discouraging time to time. We kind of had to like help each other through that and say like, keep going, you know, it cannot happen overnight. And then now we're looking at a strategic plan that whether principals want to or not, now don't have a choice. And because our cabinet, our superintendent is saying, this is what we're going to do, they don't really have a choice. And then the principals will tell the teachers, this is what we're going to do. So to really, I think, envision that full fidelity, it has to come from people besides us. It's gonna have to, and your work for that will start opening their eyes. We didn't think it was gonna happen, and it did. They saw that we weren't giving up. Every year we showed up, it was like, don't forget about digital citizenship. And we said it enough, again and again, that it caught the right people's attention. It got into our district-wide plan, and now we have some teeth and not just the bark. So the principal can't say, oh, not this year, because now they don't really have a choice. So I think that's part of it too, is that you have to have some top-down direction. And not to get discouraged, because it really is easy if you feel like you're down, you're on the ground. You're not in meetings at cabinet, you're like working with the kids every day. It will take time, and just chunk it a little bit at a time, and then you'll start seeing some movement.
How do you see this related to the internet safety requirement?
Can you say that one more time?
How do you see this related?
Thank
to
you,
the internet
guys.
safety?
Thank you.
I feel like this covers the internet safety requirement, or at least it meshes in nicely with it, because I feel like I want to tie that together.
Which are you referring to?
The fact that we're teaching internet safety in every classroom, all the time.
Are you referring to like, what is it, SIPA, or are you referring to just the standards that we teach that require?
I guess that in my mind, it's a checkbox that the superintendent has to put at the end of the year that we've taught
Yes,
internet
okay.
safety.
Yeah, I say this absolutely factors in, because there are lessons around internet safety. That's one of those domains.
So I might be able to say, this is it.
Yes,
There we go.
and that's what they want. They want to
Absolutely.
be able to.
To check that box.
Yeah.
That's like, that would be your foot in the door and be like.
We need it, we need to cover internet safety, we need to cover digital citizenship, we need to cover also the new standards, and it's just how to tie it all together, so I was
Yeah.
just wondering how you thought about
This is a great way to tie a lot.
that. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we have
Yeah.
one more question online.
Thank you.
Is it SEL or regular digital citizenship? Is it SEL or more digital citizenship?
I would say that.
Yeah, so I'm really, I.
So if you're coming in with strategy, you, but it's
I don't
also
think my laptop's
working
there.
with
I'm not taking
about how to.
Yeah, I don't know myself.
There's not the one, like, it's like, we can't separate.
It,
Thank you, everybody online.